According to the popular sense of the term, it should refer to any community which is numerically less than 50% of population of the state. The group of certain articles of the Constitution guarantees protection to minority communities and also to a protected class. Hence, the state is entitled to do everything for the protection of minority as also protected class. They deserve protection from likely deprivation of their rights. Hence, there is nothing wrong to bring a law to protect the rights of the minority and protected class. But if it is done with the intention to gain political mileage, it is certainly not good in the larger interest of the nation. If it is sought to be brought to gain political power, then it will be fooling the people and it will not be in the interest of a welfare state. If it is to continue the policy of the Britishers to divide and rule, then it is not good from the point of view of a common man who is dreaming of a welfare state. Similarly, a legislation which does not contain any provision which is directly discriminatory may yet offend against the guarantee of equal protection if it confers unguided power upon the executive in the matter of application of law. That's exactly what is going to happen if this bill were to become an act. Because the officers or the investigating officers will be demoralized. They will be totally biased. What was sought to be removed by introduction of the bill will be inducted by means of this bill. Because they will be apprehensive. They will not be on their own. Because there is some pressure built on them on account of the bill itself. Because they must save their own skin. So in that way, the entire investigation will be biased. In that context, I have said that a provision which is directly discriminatory may offend against the guarantees of equal protection if it confers unguided power upon the executive in the matter of application of law. The basic postulate of law is that justice should not only be done, but it must also be seen to have been done. What is the perception of the general public in this regard, so far as this bill is concerned? Therefore, the law on the anvil has to be examined from the perspective of a common man in the above backdrop. One section of the elite and the political class may say that it is a threat to national integrity, and the other may say that it is necessary to give protection to minority and to maintain secular fabric of the country is concerned. But what a common man feels about the proposed law is the issue that has to be addressed by one and all. For that, one should point out the merits and demerits of the law to a common man and allow him to decide whether he wants this law or not. And to a certain extent, a very valiant attempt has been made by Rakesh Sinha to show that probably a common man may not desire the bill to become an act, having regard to the discrimination that it makes between one group and the other. So what we are supposed to do is not only to discuss the good and bad about the law, which is yet to become an act, but spread the message to others. What would be the consequence, or what would be the after effect if this law were to become an act? In this context, our effort should be to educate a common man about the intricacies of law and allow him to make a choice, and it is not for us to decide and feed them by saying that it will disintegrate the nation. Give them the data, allow them to decide. Examining the proposed law from its preamble, it appears to be fine, as I have already stated. The object very clearly indicates that the bill wants to protect the minority. But as already stated, where is any question of minority when there is a communal violence? It is a fight between two individuals or two groups. And if you want to differentiate one group and separate the other group for the application of the bill, then certainly it offends Article 14 of the Constitution. I feel that the apprehension of certain sections of the society is not about the object of the bill, but about its application and implementation. Every law, as a matter of fact, appears to be very good, but it fails at the stage of its implementation and application. The object of every law is good, but the failure is in its application and implementation. Therefore, as I understand, the apprehension of certain section of the society is the law in its application and in its implementation may hurt their rights, which in turn may destroy the social and secular fabric of the Constitution. Further, if one feels that the objects mentioned in the preamble is not the real objective, then one should lift the veil and show that the real object is something different from the one mentioned in the preamble. I should say that definitely an attempt has been made by Rakesh Sinha to show that the object mentioned in the preamble is not the one which they want to achieve by introducing this bill. It is equally the duty of the lawmakers to assure the other section, whenever you make such law or wherever you make such sensitive laws, you must also take the other group also into confidence. So the lawmakers must show that yes, we are making a law to safeguard the interest of the minority, but at the same time, it is not going to affect your rights. But nobody is doing this job. That is the sorry state of affairs, because each is provoking the other about the proposed legislation, which is not good in the interest of the public at large. In this context, I will give one small instance from my own experience. When I was taking a morning walk one day, I found a foreigner going with his dog, and some street dogs, as usual, were barking and trying to attack the dog. Normally what we do is, as you all know, when we take the dogs for the morning walk, we carry a stick with us And sometimes when we see that these dogs are barking at your dog, probably you throw stones at those dogs to scare them or drive them away, or to threaten them by wielding a stick. But I found to my surprise that the said foreigner, instead of driving away those street dogs who were barking at his dog, is actually cajoling and patting those dogs, and ultimately made them to feel that they should not bark. And ultimately I found that they started wagging their tails at the foreigner. That means when you take your dog, especially when you are passing through the area of the street dogs, they must also feel confident that dog is not going to harm their interests. And this is only a live example as to how a law should be made and how the lawmakers should think. This kind of attitude is needed from the lawmakers, especially when they make laws which are likely to give an impression or create an impression to one section that will harm their interests, which in turn will affect the national interest. Here itself I may be permitted to quote the observations, because he has already quoted saying that there is some thinking going on that some of the laws are gender biased. And in this context, it will not be out of place for me to make a reference to a Supreme Court decision where, when the lordship were dealing with the provisions contained in section 497 of IPC, that is the adultery, they have observed that the provision is currently under criticism from certain quarters for showing a strong gender bias, for it makes the position of a married almost as a property of her husband. But in terms of the law as it stands, it is evident from a plain reading of the section that only a man can be proceeded against and punished for the offence of adultery. Indeed, the section provides expressly that the wife cannot be punished even as an abettor. Thus, the mere fact the applicant is a woman makes her completely immune on the charges of adultery, and she cannot be proceeded against for that offence. Though, of course, the learned judge cannot directly say that it is gender bias, but he has made a reference to this passage probably to express his view that there is such thinking is going on. And especially the last line, the mere fact that the appellant is a woman makes her completely immune to the charge of adultery, and she cannot be proceeded against for that offence. For a moment, I am not propagating the theory that there should not be any discrimination on certain rational basis. Yes, there are certain laws today, for example, Domestic Violence Act is concerned. One class is differentiated from the other class. Women is differentiated from man.